a step, can't turn back now. We know that there's no room for doubt. No, we can't turn back now. I see danger in your eyes. They know we'll burn down the night. Coming just like the sunrise. You know that we're gonna light it up tonight. We're gonna light it up, babe. Tonight we're gonna light it up just like the sunrise. We're gonna light it up.
Welcome to the HVAC Guide live show where we talk about all things HVAC that no one else is talking about. If you can't tell, this is not my studio in the background. I am on the road, and I'm actually in Dallas, Texas, and I'm here for Vid Summit where all the top YouTubers in the nation come, and so excited to maybe get some knowledge, be better on our channel, and all that fun stuff. So do me a favor, if you're watching us, drop a hello in the chat and let us know where you're watching from. That's always fun. That said, I've got a couple of things tonight for you guys. Obviously, I'm flying solo. We did a poll a few weeks ago where we asked you guys, we asked on our YouTube channel, what type of shows do you like? Do you like the shows where it's just me? Do you like the shows where we bring on a guest? Or do you like a mix of both? And it was pretty, far beyond. Everyone said that they prefer a mix, that they like some of the shows where I'm able to answer questions live, and then some of the shows that would bring on some cool guests. So the first thing is next week, if you are, we'll be here next week, Tuesday night. You don't want to miss next week. Next week, our guest is from the UK, and as you know, we do this live. And so because of the time difference, he's going to be waking up, I think, at like 2:30 a.m. or maybe it's like 1:30. I can't remember the time difference, but he's making, I feel like, a pretty big sacrifice to come on here with us. I've done YouTube videos with him before. Really smart guy. And he's doing heating and air in the UK and, in Europe in general is just a little different than the way we do things. And so we're going to be talking about some of that. And so Jacob will be our guest next week. So be here for that, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Second thing is the algorithm has been kind of holding our content back a little bit. It doesn't always perform as well as it used to. And I think one thing that'll help with that is, number one, saying hello in the chat. Comments always help, but also hitting that like button. If you don't mind, hit that like button. That helps us out. We're also going to be playing very soon the next solo show that I do. I'm going to do it vertical video. That always seems to help numbers as well. It seems silly that we have to do things like that, but as I said, the algorithm's been holding us back a little bit. So hit that like button. And then I think that's it for housekeeping matters. Next, let's take a moment to pay the bills and thank the sponsor of tonight's episode.
I wanted to take a quick break and tell you about something I'm doing outside of educating folks on our YouTube channel. If you're a service professional of any type, you don't have to be an HVAC, I want to invite you to check out our growth groups at newhvacguide.com. They are full of other pros like you that are wanting to grow. You can share strategies, overcome challenges, and unlock your full potential with the supportive community of your peers. Learn from industry experts and proven business tactics tailored specifically for service service businesses.
The amount of information that I've gotten out of this has been unparalleled value. I mean, I've learned so much from the other guys in the group, what to do, sometimes what not to do. It's helped inspire me. I'm really looking forward to what the future holds with it as my company grows and I grow as a person on this call.
Check out the description or the chat for the link. See you soon.
Okay, again, if you're watching us here live, just hit the like button and say hello in the chat. Next, let's move on to our story for this week. I like doing the solo shows where I don't have a guest because we get to talk about some of these things that we don't always get to talk about. When we have a guest, we're focused on the guests, focused on asking them questions, and I don't get to share some of these crazy news stories. This one's a kind of a heartbreaker. Let's switch over to that and show you guys. Let's see, can I make this any bigger for you? Let me just remove my fat face, but I don't think you'll be able to hear me if I do that. So hold on one second. Let me see if I can edit the layout here. See if I can make this any bigger here. It didn't make it a whole lot bigger. Sorry about that, guys. But I think you get the gist here. So the crazy thing about this story, that when I first came across it, it says woman dies after climbing into an industrial air conditioner system at City Hall. And this story comes out of Corpus Christi, Texas. When I first heard about this story, I thought that this lady was a technician, that she had climbed in there. And as we go through this story, you'll find out that she's not. So this doesn't start like a typical news story. It says update August 16th, 4:11 p.m. Oh, I see. So this was an addition to the original article. The Corpus Christi Medical Examiner's Office has identified the woman who was killed after falling into a cooling tower after the air conditioning system at City Hall Friday morning as 33-year-old Aisha Lopez. So our prayers go out to her family. A woman died after falling into a cooling tower for the air conditioning system at City Hall Friday morning at 7:20 a.m. A city maintenance employee heard a noise coming from the chiller and discovered the deceased woman inside the unit. City officials say the woman was not a city employee and are trying to determine if the woman may have been living near the vicinity. City manager Peter Zanoni says city officials reviewed surveillance footage and the woman snuck into a gated area at City Hall after an employee was either entering or leaving the location. After entering the gated area, the woman climbed into a large silver industrial air conditioner after removing a mesh wired covering. We have the police department here, the fire department, our maintenance staff are all here as well. So right now, what we know is that a dead body, a female, is at the bottom of a pre-cooling tower at City Hall that's used to pre-cool the water part of our air conditioning system. So it looks like the lady climbed up, removed a protective screen, and fell down to the bottom of the pre-cooling tower, says Peter Zanoni. Zanoni said the first floor of City Hall will remain operative, however, the other, blah, blah, blah. So we don't care about any of that. Yeah, I hate these stories when they don't give us, so I wonder what, if they even know what the lady's motives was. Was she looking for somewhere to, rest? Is she homeless? Obviously this was something unsafe to do. But, you can see here. So I assume those ladders there I think those are permanent looking ladders. So I don't know if she climbed up here and then fell down in, or this is a little different from the cooling tower that we used at the company I worked at, that we had and maintained. It looks a little different, but either way, so the cooling tower that we had at the company I worked at was on the roof of a building. And it was very hard to get up there. You had to was almost a maze to get up there behind several locked doors. Whereas this almost kind of looks like, it sounds like she removed a mesh screen, but other than that, why are these ladders here making it so easy to climb up there? Yeah. So I can only speculate, why she did such a thing. It's pretty sad that she lost her life, whatever she was trying to do. But I think it just goes to show, not only is, should this not have happened, it goes to show how dangerous some of this stuff can be, and some of what we do can be. So, especially if you don't know what you're doing, pretty sad story. So anyway, again, feel free to drop a hello in the chat. Let me know where you're watching us from. We will have an awesome guest next week. And again, we are going to be playing with some different formats as well. But let's move on to tonight's question for you guys. We have a segment that we do called Josh's Question for You, and let's do that now. So tonight's question for you guys is, we do a goofy invention segment on our show. So sometimes we'll have guests, sometimes it's just me, and we'll do a goofy invention segment. Here's what that looks like. A goofy invention segment has my goofy face. But my question to you guys tonight is, have you ever thought of an invention? Have you ever thought of something goofy or not? Just something that you're like, man, that would be nice if the HVAC, the heating or cooling system in my home had that. Wouldn't that be nice? It looks like we had one light come through, so thank you to whoever did that. But have you ever had an invention, something that you think would be nice? Wouldn't it be nice if your thermostat already knew that you were hot or cold before you even had to adjust the temperature on it? So that's our question tonight. What do you think? What's a good invention? What's something that you think would do well in our industry that we'd love to hear it? We won't steal your idea. I won't go patenting it. But if you've got a goofy invention, I know Gary is a pretty smart guy that joins us every week. Gary, you got any cool inventions out there, man? You got any interesting ideas? We'd love to hear about that. That said, if you do have any heating and air questions, it's been a while since it's been just me. It's been a while since I've been able to just take your questions live. So feel free to drop those questions in there as well. You guys haven't woken up yet. Sometimes this chat is hard to even keep up with. So it looks like it's slow going getting started tonight. But that said, let me move on to... I've got another story I wanted to share with you guys. Bear with me just a second. It's not this one. Bear with me. I had to make a quick little makeshift studio. I'm at Vid Summit down here in Dallas, Texas, and I was telling some of the other folks, we had dinner with some other YouTubers, and I said, I don't miss my live show. We've only ever missed this 1 week, and that was because I had a power outage and I had no other choice. But other than that, I don't miss this. Everything else, I don't want to say everything. If something family related was a problem, then that'd be different. But as much as I'd like to be there for the event that they're having tonight, this is more important. I'm here every week, and I appreciate you guys that support us. Emery says, what are the common reasons for compressor failures? That's a really good question, because I've heard it said, Gary says, I enjoy your goofy ideas. I've heard it said that compressors are not, they don't die, they're murdered, I think is the quote. I don't know who came up with that. Probably one of the old timers that we see make awesome YouTube content. but I've heard it said multiple times. Compressors are not, they don't die, they're murdered. And hopefully YouTube doesn't flag this video for saying that word. I know there's certain words that you can't say, or they will flag that video and maybe even remove it. But anyway, that said, what are some of the common reasons? One of the ones that I probably see when you say common, that I see maybe the most, more than any other, is compressors will fail because of poor practices from the technician or installer. One of those poor practices being, not flowing an inert gas when they're brazing, like nitrogen. That's a given now. That you've got to do that. You are causing problems if you're not doing that. And believe it or not, as much as we talk about it on our YouTube channel, and it's not just me, there are countless others in our trade that have basically, said that this is a non-negotiable. There are heating and air companies that, if you're not going to do anything else right, if you're going to cut every other corner, don't cut that one, right? And so it's that big of a deal. It's that paramount. And we still, to this day, even after all of that, see people doing that. We still see people brazing copper without flowing nitrogen. And that will kill a compressor. That junk, the refrigerant as it flows through there, especially 410A and some of the new refrigerants, will literally carry debris, flakes, if you will, from the oxidation to areas of the heating and air system that can do one of two things. Number one, if it's not good, clean refrigerant and oil in that compressor, that can cause it to get hotter and cause issues. But aside from that, the debris from those flakes and oxidation can also clog metering devices and filter dryers and cause restrictions, which is in turn hard on the compressor. So that would be the first one that jumps to mind. The second one is, again, from the installation and or technician, and that is pulling a proper vacuum, doing a triple evacuation on that system, and making sure that you have a good setup and you're pulling it down to a good micron level. I've heard it debated on what that level should be, but definitely I don't think there's anyone out there that would say it should be above 500. So 500 microns. And if you don't, then that will be hard on the compressor because of a number of reasons, but one of those being, excuse me, one of those being that some oils, POE oil, PVE oil, if they are exposed to moisture, if a good vacuum wasn't pulled on that system, they will become acidic. And that will then eat away at copper. It will sometimes cause copper plating in the compressor, and then again causing that compressor to have premature failure. So that would be some of the main reasons, I would say, when you say common, most common. Some other common issues I would say is voltage issues. So if you have a system that you're not getting the correct incoming high voltage to that system, that can be hard on a compressor. Other ones being not having proper airflow in the indoor unit. So you've got a system that, because you're not getting good proper airflow, you could have high head pressures. You could have a number of problems, but ultimately at the end of the day, what it's most hard on is that compressor. And so that's probably some of the most common that just jump in my brain just off the cuff here. If I know there's sometimes pros that join us in the chat. If you know of any that I didn't mention, feel free to also note that. Ryan says, upgradable equipment, inverter boards, keep the same housing, but replace the boards as technology gets better. Upgrade. Yeah, I mean, so you're saying that have the system that you can upgrade the board in that same system? I think that improving on anything these days is definitely a good thing, right? A lot of inverter boards that we're seeing out there, a lot of times it's not even the board will fail, but you'll see things like, one of the diodes may not be acting correctly, or maybe that, inverter system is, well, just the heat pump system in general is something else could be going on, and the board's actually not bad. That we see folks, they'll replace boards because, well, I've got voltage going into it and it's not doing what it's supposed to, so let me just swap the board. Well, that's not exactly the way to do that. You want to check all your other components and see, maybe that board is bad. Maybe it is, maybe it ain't. But let's just say it is. Why did it die? Could another component cause that failure? And, the answer is yes. Ryan said yes. I assume that's why he's saying yes. But, if they're failing, then, there very well could be a reason for that. Is there a possibility that things fail just because things fail? Absolutely. But it's just astonishing at how many parts or systems that I see fail, and it was the technician's fault. Either they misdiagnosed it or they did something else incorrectly. So it's not going away. As this trade continues to get more complicated, SEER ratings get higher, the government, wants the most efficient systems out there, so they keep raising the standards. And to combat that, companies are coming out with, these systems that you need to know what you're doing to work on them. Gone are the days of some of the technologies. I hear people say, well, they don't make things like they used to. Well, I agree, but there might be reasons for that. I don't think it's safe. I don't think that when folks say that and they say, well, they don't make them like they used to because systems today break more, they're definitely not talking about rotary compressors. So I think, a lot of the other issues that these systems have, whether it be a problem with the technician, whether it be a problem with the incoming voltage, whether it be a problem with, the ductwork being undersized or improper airflow, high static, all these things all gets back to, maybe the problem necessarily wasn't the equipment at the end of the day. Ryan says, just buy the equipment coils and housing once and replace the boards and other technologies as it gets older. Yep. Because I think that's a good point, because, at the end of the day, what's the biggest difference between a, 3-ton heat pump system today versus a 3-ton heat pump system 20 years ago? Unfortunately, as metal does degrade and other problems, there is something to be said for heat transfer is not as good as years go on. But I hear what you're saying. A lot of the mechanical components, they are what they are, even if they have some age on them, right? But we need better metals that didn't corrode. Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. What have y'all been thinking about some of the guests that we've been having? We had a large contractor on, and that was interesting. We had a large podcaster on that educates others in our trade. Let's see, who else have we had as guests? We had some heavy hitters in our industry. Ty Branneman and Don Gillis, and some of these folks that are known in our industry as making the rules, if you will. I'm not saying they're making the rules, but they're a part of that circle, right? They're some of the smartest people in our trade, educating others. And we've had some cool guests on. We're gonna have more cool guests. As long as y'all like it and continue to want us to have more, then we will. Let's see. Where's that other story that I was going to play for you guys? Bear with me. I had another story I was going to share with you. This isn't it. Of course, I'm not finding it now that we're on live. I'll tell you, I've met some pretty cool people here at Vid Summit. Gary says, enjoyed all the guests, informative and funny as well. Oh yeah, we've had some funny ones. Yeah, Louis was a blast. It's fun to me. It's funny too because our guests have been from all over. So you had Louis in New York, Ron in North Carolina on the coast. Don's out in the Midwest. Tersh is down in Georgia. We've had a good mix of different folks, not just their actual professions, but where they're at in the nation and what they've been up against. Emery says, what is the difference between liquid and suction lines when it comes to the movement of refrigerant? Oh, you really put me on the spot. So ultimately, let's back up a little bit. Now, I will say this. I am not an expert on all things refrigeration. I don't know that I would be the guy to teach you like an in-depth class on refrigerants and heat transfer and the refrigeration cycle and all of it's just I've always been stronger on the electrical side of things. But that said, why do we have a liquid and a suction line? And ultimately what we're talking about when we're talking about refrigerants is we're saying that this is I don't want to say material, but this is a chemical, just like water has a boiling point. So water has a boiling point where it will boil and turn from a liquid to a gas. And when it does that, it will do an array of things, but it will ultimately change states and temperatures. And so with these refrigerants, the temperature also can translate to pressure. And so ultimately, the reason we have two different lines, we have a suction and a liquid, is because it changes states in one or the other coil, depending on what mode it's in. And that's why you have a liquid and a suction. So essentially you're saying I have a liquid and a vapor line. And so, again, I don't claim to be an expert on all things refrigerant, cycle, loop. I know some guys can rattle off, when it's in the evaporator coil or when it's in the condenser coil or in the compressor, it's in this state. I don't really get into all of that, but I think at the end of the day, just obviously you've got to have both of them. One is a bit larger from the other for a reason. I think some guys get it backwards though. I've seen guys get filter dryers and on a straight AC system, and they'll take the arrow and it should point towards, away from the unit, because in air conditioning mode, the suction line is the suction line. It's, imagine, suction equating to, vacuum, like coming back towards the unit. I don't know if vacuum's the right word, but anyway, the refrigerant cycle in that mode, the arrow has to point towards the house, away from the unit. And I've seen guys flip that around on accident, which then causes a restriction and an array of other issues. Ryan says, glad you like the guests. Some aren't geared to homeowners, but good to listen in on. Yeah, it's part of the reason I moved the channel to its own, the show to its own channel, because I was noticing that some of the rabbit holes, we were having some cool guests on. We were also having It's a good observation, Ryan, because maybe I need to remember that. I need to stick to my bread and butter and talk about, more things that, that pertain to the original mission here. And what was the original mission? Well, when I started making YouTube videos, there were plenty of heating and air guys making videos for other heating and air guys, but there were very few of them that were making videos for mom. If mom's about to buy a heating and air system, what advice would I give her or you give her? And so that was the original intent behind the channel, trying to help mom out so she can avoid some of those scams or problems, pitfalls that folks fall into. And so I think that's a good observation. I need to probably keep that in mind more. That's still our goal here. The goal has never changed. It's just at times, if I've got a really cool guest that I think would be fun to have on the show, even if it doesn't always fit the cookie cutter mold, we'll have them on and maybe just do some different things. I was telling the girl that helps me edit our videos, if you go back to the show we had with Tersh last week, and I ask him the same question I ask every guest. I ask them, if mom or your closest family member is about to buy a heating and air system, what advice would you give her? And if you go back and watch the end of last week's live show, his answer was so good. I don't even want to go into it because I won't do it justice, but go back and watch the end of last week's live show. It was so good. It wasn't your cookie cutter, get 3 quotes, which there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great advice. But he really, kind of just hit the nail on the head with that question. So Ryan says, what are your thoughts on inverter window units versus a mini split for a single room? The cost is vastly different, but they can accomplish the same things. Why one over the other besides security? To be completely honest with you, Ryan, I have not done enough, I don't want to say research, but I haven't even laid hands on enough of the window units to know how good or bad they are, what their reliability is. I will say this, regardless of how good they are, and let's just say they're the same. If we're comparing apples to apples, they're the same. Because I know some of them are heat pumps. Some of them can do heat in the winter. At the end of the day, the biggest problem I see with window units is maintenance. And so at the end of the day, if you're going to buy I don't know how much the window units are, but let's just say they're, I don't know, $400 or $500. And you buy one. I mean, I'm pretty sure the heat pump ones are even more. So let's say $1,000. You pay $1,000 and you get one. And again, I'm just throwing numbers out there. I have no clue how much they cost. But let's say you spend that kind of money, and then, you get a heating and air guy out there a couple years later. You want to get that thing cleaned up, get it serviced, all of that. A lot of heating and air guys, they just don't even do it because the cost of, you paying them to do a proper tune-up on that system ends up being more than, you might just go get a new unit in some cases, depending on what's wrong with it. They definitely can't throw gauges on them. They're closed loop systems usually, or at least they used to be. Ryan says, I understand that window units are a security risk, but they cost so much less than a professionally installed mini split. It's hard to justify it because an inverter window unit does the same. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue against that in some cases, especially when they are less expensive. So I think it gets back to, do I have a window that I can spare some room in? Again, I haven't laid hands on them. I don't even know if a lot of times when we're talking about a quality standpoint, I remember a guy I was talking to one time, he was saying, look, they all blow cold. Like, right? If you want it to be in AC mode and it's hot summer day, they all blow cold. The real test for some of these systems comes when it's time to blow warm and it gets super cold outside, or there's some other, issue, some other challenge with the weather, maybe hail or maybe freezing rain, sleet, something like that, that's when you find out, which system is worth its, weight there. And so that's what I would wonder about those units. We never serviced our window units growing up. They lasted 10 years. I've been thinking about another mini split or a window unit for a room. Yeah. And so, same. So I remember my parents had window units, and we certainly never had anyone come repair them. But I also remember one when I was a kid that would turn on and it would blow chunks of black stuff out. And Lord knows what we were breathing. The system wasn't being maintained correctly. It wasn't even being taken outside and sprayed down real good. And Lord knows what we were breathing, I see them as, Ryan says, I see them as a secondary source of heat or cooling as I have central unit. Yeah, I mean, we used to keep them as a backup or as an extra service, if you will, for our customers. So if we had to order a part, or maybe they had a system failure and they're waiting for us to install a new system, we would give them. We usually didn't do the window units. We did the little floor model, units that had the little tube that went up to the window. But I mean, I worked for a company that did window units, and it was just always something nice to have as a backup if you do got to wait on that part. So Ryan says, I hope it wasn't mold. I'm sure it was. I don't know that for a fact, but I'm sure it was. What else would it have been, So anyway, I know Ryan and he likes to put me on the spot and ask some tough questions sometimes. If you are here, feel free to also drop a question. Hopefully your question won't be as challenging. I'm just kidding, Ryan. I appreciate you, and I appreciate how much you join us and all that fun stuff. I always give you a hard time about your questions because sometimes you do ask some pretty good questions. I'm like, oh, he's going to stump me tonight, which is not hard to do. Let's be honest. So, let's see. Let's go to, my computer. Come on. Let's go to one of our crazy clips segments. Let me pull up. By the way, I have a plethora of new clips for our crazy clips segment. I added, I've got like a little running list of them. And I remember a couple weeks ago, I added several at a time. So let me pull up this. Bear with me. Okay, so this guy, let me see if I can get, bear with me. So this guy is working on, hopefully you guys can see that. I don't think I can zoom in. Oh yeah, I can. So this guy's working on looks like, I don't know what they're called, but like a cooler of some sort in a grocery store. So that's an air conditioned, it's got the glass top right there. And watch this. So, I don't know if you guys saw that, but that is a very flammable refrigerant right there. I'm going to remove, now you can't hear me, but you don't need to hear me. So I'm going to remove my fat face so you guys can see this full screen and start this back. Let me see. I might need to go to the next one. All right. It's not letting me go full screen. Hold on. So how crazy was that? I mean, so he's it looks like, so if you look at the clip there below, it's in a different language, but it says R290. So he must have been, using R290, which is, for those of you that don't know, R290 is propane. It's a refrigerant, but it's propane. And he's lucky he's still alive, to be honest with you. I don't know what he was doing. He obviously did not. He looked like he was brazing, but I don't know if he didn't recover the refrigerant, what he didn't do, but that is, I mean, it's just crazy. And again, he's lucky that he's even still alive. So pretty crazy clip there. Gary says old window units also get real rusty over time. Ryan says, do you still look at HVAC units in places you visit? Is it something you always notice? Additionally, like doctors, do you ever avoid telling people you meet that you work in HVAC to avoid questions? I think I've thought about things like that, but I don't worry about it. I've gotten better over the years at just saying, no, if it, because I'll have to, oh, you do heating and air, can you do this? And I'll just have to tell them no, that's just not something that and now there's other reasons too. I can't do certain things. When I sold my company, I signed a non-compete, and that has parameters of things that I can and cannot do. And so, I just tell them no if it's something that I won't or can't do. But, back to your first question, I don't know that I'll ever turn off that brain where, whatever trade you're in or whatever job you have, I feel like you notice that job. So like, for example, if you buy a red Jeep, you're going to start seeing red Jeeps everywhere. And you're like, man, they're everywhere. And you're like, I've never noticed all these red Jeeps. Well, they were there the whole time. You just didn't notice them. I feel like jobs are like that too. I focus on, in fact, the craziest thing this morning, we were pulling out of the hotel we're staying at, and there sat a crane with a heating and air system, and they were, I guess, removing it or putting it on the roof. It looked old, so it looked like they had probably removed that one. Obviously we noticed. So I thought it was pretty funny. Ryan says they looked careless. Yeah, that's an understatement. Looked careless on that repair we just saw. Emery says, remind me what happens if you don't pull a vacuum when checking charge. Remind me what happens if you don't pull a vacuum when checking charge. Well, you don't pull a vacuum when you check charge. So when you're checking charge, you're essentially, what people are saying when they say that is they're checking the refrigerant levels of that system. So they want to see what levels are they at, and or is it where it's supposed to be at? Becomes the question. So, let me go back. I've got another crazy clip to show you guys. Bear with me. I thought that one was pretty crazy. I don't know if you guys agree or not, but I thought that was pretty crazy. Let me see with this one. Okay, so this one, I think this one's pretty interesting because it, let's see, share this tab. So this one's called Blast in 410 refrigerant. So a lot of these new refrigerants that folks are concerned about, these A2L refrigerants, and I think it just goes to show, I don't know what country these guys are in, but it doesn't look to me like it's in North America, so I don't know where they're at in the world, but it goes to show that no matter the refrigerant, things can be, unsafe. I'll say this. Well, anyway, let's watch the clip before I say what I was about to say, because I don't even know what we see, basically, is what I was going to say. I don't even know what we're seeing at times. So let's watch. How crazy was that? I don't know what the guy in the background is doing right there, but it looks like he's doing something, but the blast looks like it's coming from over here on the right. If you watch over there to the right, it comes from over there. So I don't know what happened, but it looks like it blasted out from the right, and then whatever it was maybe hit the ground and then blasted towards the guy again. And I thought that was a pretty crazy clip as well. What's this thing doing? It's going to try to play an ad in here. So anyway, again, I think it just goes to show it doesn't matter what the refrigerant level is or what the refrigerant itself is, flammable or not, that things can happen, especially when things are not done correctly. It's kind of hard to tell in that video what exactly you're seeing, but I thought that was pretty crazy in itself. Excuse me. I've got one more clip I'll show you guys tonight. If you do have any questions, concerns, all that fun stuff, then, oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll show you guys this one. Feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat. We will be wrapping up our show here soon. And I do want to say thank you to everybody that has been watching, showing support, especially on the new channel, HVAC Guide Live Show. Hit that subscribe button. We've got some cool guests coming up, and we will be doing this more often as well, which is flying solo and answering your questions live. Let me show you guys this next one. Crazy clip. And let me see if I can remove me so you guys can see it full screen. Obviously, whatever happened there is pretty... If you notice, he's on a boom lift, and that boom lift starts tilting back there on the ground. Well, I shouldn't even say back. It's kind of to the side. And so it's hard to tell in the clip exactly what he's doing wrong. It looks like he's on level ground. He's got the boom up pretty high. But, I would definitely maybe would have had those wheels turned to where it couldn't get so top-heavy like that and fall over. Thank God he had a harness on. If he didn't, look right here. It would have thrown him right there. It probably would have slammed him to the ground like a body slam. And he's very lucky. Very, very lucky that he survived that. So, anyway, get back to our questions here. Ryan says, do you feel that most professionals have been trained in the A2Ls now, or do you feel that most professionals have been trained in A2Ls, or should homeowners be afraid that non-trained pros will be out there next year installing the new equipment? I think that, it's a good question. I don't, obviously I can only go by my own experience. I can't go by full country statistics, but I do think that I would say at least the contractors in our area, the majority, meaning more than 50% of them, have gotten some sort of training. But I did a video on this, and I was a little concerned with the training that some of them were getting. But at the end of the day, there's not that big of a difference between R30. Now, if we were making a drastic switch from 410A refrigerant to, say, R290, that would be a big switch. A big switch that I think homeowners would normally, I would say they should be very concerned. But with this transition, to be completely honest with you, I think we need to be serious? Yes. Do I think technicians and homeowners need to be safe? Yes. Do we need to be fearful? No. Is it a huge drastic change? No. So for example, 410A refrigerant is made up of half R32, which is one of the A2L refrigerants that we're seeing introduced into our country. So again, do we need to be serious? Do we need to be safe? Do we need to do things like make sure that we're blowing fresh air into confined workspaces? Yes. I think, and I say this in my class on A2L refrigerants, we probably should have been doing that anyway. If you weren't, you should have. Lord knows what you're breathing, and you're working in a confined workspace with these refrigerants leaking out, and you're over there just breathing it and doing your job. Not okay. Not good. So I think at the end of the day, we're not making this huge drastic change. In fact, I would even argue, that it was a more drastic change from going from R22 to 410 like we did a decade or two ago versus this transition. Because when we switch from R22 to 410, we're talking about some of the head pressures tripled, the operating head pressures of these refrigerants. So I remember guys having actual legitimate fear over that alone. Oh, the world's ending. Heat pumps and air conditioners are going to be blowing holes in the side of houses because the pressures are so high. I think that at the end of the day, do I want technicians to be getting more training? Yes. Do we need to be serious? Yes. But do homeowners need to be fearful? Not over this. I think that they should be more fearful over furnaces not getting combustion analysis annually. Do you realize how many furnaces out there where they don't get combustion analysis done every single year? I mean, that alone, forget refrigerants. You're not even getting a combustion analysis on your system. Do you have carbon monoxide detectors in your home? Google it. Never mind refrigerants. You got bigger things to worry about, in my opinion. You drive a wrecking machine with A3 fluids, very high flammability liquid in the gas tank. You drive wrecking machines with air conditioners that have at times some of these A2L refrigerants, 1234YF, in the air conditioning system. And you also have an A3 flammable gas piped. If you have a furnace in your home, you have an A3 gas piped into your home with an open flame. Now, regardless what type of furnace you have, and for all intents and purposes, it's an open flame that's being blown, gas valve opening, and it's pushing a flame of gas, ignited gas, into a heat exchanger, into a gas chamber, basically, in your home. Do you need to be concerned about these new refrigerants? I don't know that I'm not saying you shouldn't be concerned, but I don't know it's going to be my top concern. Do I think contractors need to be very, very serious? It's not, could they catch their sleeves on fire, for example, if they're not doing things properly? Yeah. But do homeowners need to be, losing sleep at night about these new refrigerants? I say no. Will we hear news stories of things happening? Probably, because there's so many, people out there that love to do DIY stuff, and then so many pros out there that don't do things correctly anyway. So will we hear stories in the news? Probably, unfortunately. But do we need to be super fearful of the... I mean, they've been using R32 refrigerant for decades in other countries. They've been using them for... Now, I can't speak for R454B. It's a newer refrigerant. It's mostly made up of R32, and then the rest of it, I think it's just over 30% 1234YF. But it is still new. I mean, it has not been used for decades and decades overseas and other countries. That said, it's still made up of mostly R32, and I think that both new refrigerants should not be creating large amounts of fear in homeowners. That's just my feelings, me getting on my soapbox for a moment. I've got a few more questions I'm going to answer here, so thank you guys for those. That said, as I go through these, if you're here in the chat, first of all, thank you. Second of all, do me a favor. We know there's some bad apples in our industry. Let's show some love to some of those good apples. If you know a good HVAC company, a good electrician, a good plumber, a good painter, anybody that you know that's good, that's in the trades, in the home service business, I don't care if it's a tile guy, drop their name in the chat. Let's show them some love. Where are they located? What's the name of the company? You never know. Number one, you're going to show them some love. But number two, you never know if somebody in your city might see your comment, and you might be able to send them more than love. You might be able to send some business their way. So feel free to drop those names, and I will highlight them as they come in. That said, Ryan says, by the way, I have an R32 Daikin mini split that I know the people installing it didn't even know it was different or installed it before. I feel safe and not afraid. That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think the other thing to point out, there are some changes on the new unitary equipment, but I think the threshold is 4 pounds. So if that system holds less than 4 pounds of refrigerant, it's just business as usual. It doesn't need, excuse me, it doesn't have the new refrigerant sensors that will sense that refrigerant leak and go into mitigation mode. That's now code for larger equipment. So mini splits it's just a different refrigerant, but it's still basically the same technology. So yeah, Ryan said, I feel safe, not afraid. Gary says, Josh, in my Mitsubishi split system, during the winter, it was my primary heat source. During the defrost cycle, the wall unit will make a huge boiling sound briefly. Is this the boiling and reversing coolant? I would guess that you probably are hearing refrigerant flowing through those lines as it goes into defrost mode, Gary. Some systems have hot gas bypass valves. So sorry to be coughing in your ear, guys. Just something just got... It's tickling my throat the wrong way. But, yeah. So, I've even heard systems not even in defrost mode. You can actually hear the refrigerant cycling through those pipes. And sometimes it can be, honestly, in some cases, a little annoying. Some customers will be like, I don't like that sound. What do we got to do to fix it? So, but yeah, so, defrost cycle in itself, I remember when they wouldn't even shut the system off. So like these days, most systems, when they go into defrost mode, they will turn off. The system will, the refrigerant will start to balance out and then it'll go into defrost mode. And it's all about noise. It's probably a little easier on the system too, I would guess, but it's ultimately about, because it used to, some of these systems, you get like a big old 5-ton, 12-SEER, system, and it go into defrost mode, and there's no delay on that. It would sound like air brakes on a tractor trailer sometimes. It was just crazy. Ryan says probably 80% of furnaces in the South don't get combustion analysis. I asked an HVAC owner, and he said that no, that wasn't part of the plan. Good companies do, though, but still might have to ask them to. Yeah, I think it's amazing how many of them today still don't have those done. And the safety ramifications that could be caused from that. I think homeowners, it's probably one of the things that I really need to do more videos on it and spread the message that combustion analysis is, you need to be getting it done. And if your contractor doesn't either want to do it, is too lazy to do it, or he just doesn't know how, that's okay too. If he doesn't know how, he's never been taught, fine, go find out how. There's enough education out there now that if you don't know how, then it's you don't want to know how, you know? So anyway, I appreciate you guys joining me every Tuesday night, especially you guys that come back. Ryan, Gary, I didn't see Arch in here, but Arch and Tech Junkie, and some of you guys, I really appreciate your support. It's been a little crazy switching over to the new channel. I did that for a number of reasons, but I do think it was the right thing to do. And, I'm going to have to slowly grow that channel just like I grew the original one. And yes, we will probably have some different types of guests, and some of them good, some of them maybe not. Maybe they're just not your cup of tea. Everybody's different, right? That's why we all drive different cars, and we all eat different foods, and we all, we're just all different, That's the way God made us. Ryan says, make a list of things we should ask contractors if they do this before hiring them for service or maintenance. Gary says, nice laid back show. Thanks, pal. Make sure you guys are here next week. Jacob that's going to be a treat. I think it'll be fun. Ryan says, make a list. So I'm not sure which part you're going through on that. Oh, you're talking about, because I said I need to do more videos on that. Yeah. One of the things I do when someone signs up for my website, newhvacguide.com, we send out a list of questions that, it's automatic. If they sign up, no matter what they sign up for, as one of the gifts, we give them this document that has all these different questions you can ask contractors to kind of compare apples to apples. But I think that's a great idea. We need to, make sure we're staying on top of things, and you'll never be able to do that. A contractor's never going to pull you aside and say, hey, I don't think I've been doing things that I should have been, not just because they're not going to do that because they don't want to look bad, but maybe they're just not going to do that because they just simply don't know to do that, Hey, I just want you to know, I just learned about combustion analysis, and I haven't been doing it, and we're going to start doing it. And it's a big deal. It's a big safety deal. It's a big efficiency deal with your system. And, we're going to start doing them. We're going to make sure things are right, and go from there. I don't think that's going to happen. But, again, thank you guys. Make sure you're here next Tuesday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. I think it's going to be like 2:30 a.m. Jacob's time. He'll be our guest next week, and I'll be back in Virginia. Appreciate you guys and your support. Make sure you hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Make sure you're subscribed to the new channel, HVAC Guide Live Show channel. And other than that, appreciate y'all. Have a great week. We'll see you then.